like what's a healthy grieving process? So one question, for example, is can I still be grieving after 26 years? Or another question is at what point in time after a death is it seen as problematic to still be thinking about the person and the loss every second of the day? And it seems like the journey is unique for everyone, but I think people want reassurance at times to think, is everything okay? Is this a standard part of the process, or is this something more complex and problematic? Do you have any advice on how to identify between the two?
Yes. I just want to comment on people's comments. Linda said, I heard the phrase new normal being called different normal. I quite like that. I mean, I think find the words that fit for you. And Jill, it's 2 months for you, and you often feel guilty if you're not being more upset. And, you know, one of my big messages in the app and actually in life is to be compassionate towards yourself. Like, let yourself, when you have those moments when you're feeling okay, like turn to yourself with kindness as well as when you're in pain. And I like, Wendy, your idea of Imo being in your pocket or in close to your heart. I think that's a lovely image and a lovely way of continuing the relationship. So the DSM-5, which is the statistical manual on psychological disorders, psychiatric disorders, came up this time with something called prolonged grief disorder, prolonged grief disorder, PGD. And what they said was that if there's the natural adaptation process is movement. It's not that you are not in pain or that you're in pain, but it's that your brain is a learning machine and it's always looking for information. And so it takes time for your brain and your heart to align with each other, because I'll give you the sort of technical bit to it, because I think it helps understanding grief, is that in our attachment to people that we love, we build this belief in ourselves and them that when they leave the room and go to work or they go on a trip, that they're going to come back. So we have this secure attachment that they're going to remain alive, because we couldn't survive thinking that every day they're going to die. And so the process of grieving is updating that belief from what we feel in our heart to what we know in our brain, so that they're aligned. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so when you have a sort of feeling of missing and there's that wave of grief that comes through your body, that tells you, oh, they have died. And so incrementally you adjust to this new reality that they've died. And that is the adaptation, and it's this movement. If you have prolonged grief disorder, you batten down the hatches and you block the capacity, because the circumstances of the death or your own circumstances and history of loss, or a combination of all of these things, you defend yourself and block, allowing you feel the pain all the time, but you don't move, you don't let it flow through you don't feel the movement, and then you are more likely to have prolonged grief disorder. And they talk about at 6 months, if there's no adaptation, if there's no flow, if there's no difference, that is prolonged grief disorder, and that for that people need psychological support. And there's a very good American model by someone called Professor Elizabeth Shears, and she did a model of grief work for prolonged grief disorder, which is a kind of program that psychotherapists like me can use with clients.